And I can tell you that our first presenter for 6 minutes is a retired oceanographer and marine research scientist from the CSIRO, still active even though he's officially retired from his CSIRO position, and he's going to talk to us about possible, likely impacts on the marine environment of effluent discharges from the pulp mill into Bass Strait. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Stuart Godfrey.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Environmental impact statements are written by a series of experts in very arcane fields that most people don't hear very much about unless a particularly controversial environmental impact statement comes along. Oceanography, who bothers with what actually goes on out there in the ocean? The ocean is wet and it's cold, and that's as much as most people want to know about it. But in fact, I've watched the science of it develop over 30 years from something which was sound in its principles, but the practice was not in place. Until today, we have satellites that give us the winds, they give us the sea surface height, they give us the surface temperature, other instruments that are giving us lots of detail of what goes on in the ocean. And out of it, we have an extraordinarily detailed, consistent, and rigorous picture of how the ocean works. It's been a great privilege to be involved in that kind of science. I've retired from it now, and somebody came along to me because I was retired and therefore not subject to, nobody could threaten my job or anything like that, if I took a look at the Gunns pulp mill thing. So I did. And it occurred to me as I looked at this, it had the consistency of a pillow. There was no information in this at all. There were 150 pages with nothing you could get your hands on. Apart from a sense that either this was really unbelievably incompetent or something was not very good about it. And so I did my best to come up to say those sorts of things before the RPDC, and of course that process got pulled. At that stage, I sent a letter to every member of the two houses of Parliament here in Tasmania, saying what I thought was wrong with it. And that was as much as anything to express my frustration. Then we got the EPBC process, and things began to get a bit better because even though they'd pulled out, they had to present material to the EPBC, which is the federal department, and they started to have to put in some detail. And you could say, ooh, that's not good. And you could begin to see, and so I sent a submission to the EPBC saying this was wrong. Then two things happened simultaneously. One was that the Sweco pick, I don't know, most of you will know of that, what it is. For the first time, they put down the guidelines that the Gunns were supposed to follow and how they responded to them, and they failed them on several, and my area was one of them. And I'm, being a scientist, I don't bother with laws, unless I can avoid it. And so I found out for the first time, this is what they were supposed to do, and here, in this document that I'd spent so much time on, was what they actually did do, and they were clearly in breach of what they had been asked to do. Now, the honest thing to do would have been to put what those guidelines were in the document, but they didn't do that. It allowed them to get away with all sorts of things. They didn't, for example, they were specifically asked to measure throughout the year so that you could get the whole seasonal variability. They measured for 1 month. And they've continued to humbug about that right through to the present day. At any rate, that was one thing. The other was that Gunns themselves, I very much suspect, at the behest of Malcolm Turnbull, put out a response to reviews, response to submissions to the EPBC. Now I could detect that they had things that were just straight false in what they were saying. That their information, that they had claimed that they were following certain assumptions, and I had challenged those. In their response to that challenge, they claimed things that just weren't true. So, okay, at that stage, I wrote another letter to Turnbull, and that was sufficiently strong that Turnbull sent it to, or their department sent it to an independent expert who said, Godfrey's basically right about this. It's not perfect, but it's the basic feel of it is right. And at that stage, it's somewhere around about there that he got into the business of getting the chief scientist reporting. Now, that was an excellently chosen panel. I have my quibbles with what they did, and I'm sure you'll hear more about that from Andrew. And I still think that, I do think that the process has been nobbled, not by Turnbull, but by somebody else. And specifically that there is a statement in the Commonwealth documents that repeats the assertion that not only is the limits of dioxin that you can put into the water at world's best practice, it's even 3 or 4 times better than world's best practice, and that is in absolute disregard of things that Andrew has told. So it's not as clean a process as one would like. Even the chief scientist's report was good, though wishy-washy in certain important areas. But the main thing that one sees out of this, I think, is the result of many years of the doctrine that there should be self-policing of these things, and specifically that each company pays the consultants, that chooses the consultants who are going to do the environmental impact statement. I think that process has corrupted the many experts like myself who have an obscure discipline, and there's a brotherhood of people with that obscure discipline, and they are hired by people who want to hear a particular result, and over the decades that has turned a large number of these into less than adequate